it's interesting to note that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, at the time of the Clinton trial, said witnesses were a must. And now, well, it seems that he's changed his tune, right?
He has changed his tune, and I think it's because the political stakes are different at this time. The bringing in of the witnesses is totally unpredictable and potentially damaging to Trump. Remember, Trump did not allow for any of his administration to appear before the House impeachment hearings, nor did he comply with any document requests or subpoenas. And it's possible that people such as John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, Mike Mulvaney, who's his chief of staff, and a few others, were they to testify, would either be forced into the situation of telling what they know, which could potentially be incriminating to Donald Trump, or put in another situation where perhaps they would not be completely candid with the Senate. So it's unpredictable, and therefore I think Mitch McConnell wants to say no witnesses. Let's just make this a quick, fast trial and get it over with and move on, because I think he fears that the longer it goes on, the more things that could change, the potentially damaging it could be to the Republicans in the Senate and to the President of the United States.
Like you say, the Republicans want this over with quickly. Are they going to get what they want, though? I mean, what can the Democrats do to stop that?
Well, we're going to start to see the battle on Tuesday in the United States over the rules for the impeachment process, which is basically outlining a process. The Democrats are obviously going to fight on that. I don't think they're going to win, but this is going to be the start of it. And what we're going to see is Mitch McConnell saying he wants to do this within a couple of weeks to have it over before the State of the Union speech. I think it's going to be very difficult to be able to manage that, because at some point the Democrats are going to press on with their debates. They're going to press on with the request for witnesses and other documents. So as much as I think McConnell's going to try to confine it, keep it sort of defined, there's going to be significant efforts by the Democrats to try to exploit the situation and to try to get more information in. So it's not going to go the way anybody is going to predict it's going to go.
What do you think the U.S. people are making of this? I mean, if witnesses aren't taking part and documents aren't allowed to be put forward, how might this impact how Americans vote later this year?
Well, I think it's going to be in about 2 or 3 different ways. Clearly, for people who are already considering themselves to be Democrats, this may further motivate them to vote. For those who are Republicans, it's not going to affect them at all, because they think what? They think that the entire impeachment process, to use Donald Trump's words, is a hoax, and I don't think they're going to care, but maybe it motivates them to come out to vote. The real battle is for those very few undecided voters, those swing voters, and because of the peculiarities of the American electoral system, for the president, it's the Electoral College. It's not a direct popular vote. It's a state-by-state election, and it's really going to be down to how a few undecided voters in about a half a dozen states react that determines the presidential election. So that's, I think, where the trial has the biggest impact. At the same time, recall that there's 100 U.S. senators, 35 are up for election this year. 23 are Republican. The big impact is on the control for the U.S. Senate.
Now, this might be a tricky question to answer, but obviously one of the main differences between this trial and previous impeachment trials is social media. And obviously the U.S. president is extremely active on Twitter. This is more of a legal question, but perhaps you can help enlighten us a little bit. What are the rules? Do you know, in terms of during the trial, is the president allowed to tweet, and what might he be allowed to say or not?
The president can probably do whatever he wants, since there are no rules that restrict his behavior. And even if there were, we know that this president has violated a lot of sort of the implicit norms. So I expect we're going to see him tweeting much in the same way during the House impeachment hearings. We saw something similar. But there's also another interesting question we should bring up here, is that the U.S. senators have taken an oath of impartiality. They're supposed to remain silent during the trial and only submit written questions. Does anything preclude them, for example, from from sending out on social media? I think that's going to be an interesting question. And then third aspect of the social media is that it's not so much important what actually happens at the trial or what the verdict is, but how is this spun on the social media? So in many ways, your question is really, really very good, but it cascades across lots of different people and reactions in terms of how the social media will affect this compared to what we saw, obviously, back in 1998.
Well, thank you very much, and you're a very good guest. Thanks for your time and your analysis. David Shultz from the Hamlin University in the US.